Hello humans! Today I'm going to be giving you my top 15 books of 2015. I don't know about you guys, but 2015 was a phenomenal year for reading for me. A lot of new books were released this year, and personally I discovered a lot of new authors that have become my favorite authors. I also managed to complete my Goodreads reading goal, which is the miracle, so yeah, it has been a good year for me, some new discoveries, some new favorites, and I thought I would show you my top 15 books that I have read this year. Without further ado, let's get started. So clocking in at number 15 on my list is the one and the only Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was a Booksplosion book read if you guys follow the Booksplosion read-along group. It's with Jesse the Reader, Catty-tastic, and Pullin Bananas Books. It's a space adventure. It's told in files and documents and chat rooms and a whole bunch of other wonderful things. I don't think I've read anything formatted like this, and it is just beautiful. Have you seen this book? The reason why it's so low on my list is mainly because it was slightly confusing near the beginning. So yes, I loved Illuminate. It was definitely a different read, and I'm looking forward to the next books coming up. I think there's another one being released next year. So yes, Illuminate. Number 14 on my list is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. As we pick through this list, you are going to notice I read a lot of fantasy this year, and this is one of them. This is along the epic fantasy. It's the first book in the Wheel of Time, which is a vast and very long series, and I managed to read the first book this year. This book was published in like the 90s, early 90s, probably late 80s, so it doesn't have like a Tolkien-esque or C.S. Lewis kind of feel, and it isn't as fast-paced as something as Throne of Glass. You'll read this and some parts will go quickly like modern-day fantasies are written, but then there's some points that drag on and on and on and you feel like you're reading Tolkien again. So give this book some patience if you want to pick it up, if you're interested into getting some higher fantasies. I do say if you have not read fantasy before, do not make this your first fantasy book, but if you're looking to expand, definitely pick up The Wheel of Time. Number 13 on my list is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I read my first Neil Gaiman novel this year, and it wasn't The Ocean at the End of the Lane or American Gods, it was Neverwhere. It's kind of hard to explain. Basically, this guy is in London and he falls through the cracks to like this other London. And yeah, that's basically all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil you. To be honest, I think if you want to get into Neil Gaiman and read his writing, I would recommend this one first. Then again, this is the only book I've read by him aside from the other one, but personally I really liked this and I'm excited to see and read more of his work. Number 12 on my list is These Is My Words by Nancy E. Turner. I used to be really into historical fiction, and it's kind of been a while since I've read some, but my mom loved this book and I picked it up this year and I read it, and let me tell you, I loved it. If you're not into historical fiction, I understand it's kind of a different sort of genre and some people can get bored by it. But if you love it and if you want to try it out or go back to, you know, what you read as a kid for like history and such, I would recommend These Is My Words. It's kind of a slice of this girl's life and the trials she goes through and just how things progress along the way. And yes, I definitely give it 5 stars. Number 11 on my list is the one and the only A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. For those of you who have not heard about this book and have been living under a rock, this is a fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast. And I'm not a big fan of fairy tale retellings, but I love the Throne of Glass series, so I had to pick this up and I was blown away. Sarah J. Maas is a talented writer. She makes really in-depth worlds and beautiful dynamic characters. I will say there is one section of this book I thought was not needed, and if those of you who have read this book know the section I'm talking about, but it's only like 2 pages long, or I don't even know if it was a page long. But yes, that's probably why it was a little lower, was because of that scene personally for me, but this was a very good read and I'm excited to see where this series will go. So yes, A Court of Thorns and Roses. Number 10 on my list, we're getting into the top 10, is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Just this title really just got me. Ready Player One, Ready Player One. For those of you who played video games as a kid, that's what you always saw on the screen, is Ready Player One. And you know, 2015, this year, has been the year where I've kind of been burned out on dystopian. I feel like in 2014 I read just a whole crap ton of terrible dystopian and I just kind of like shed away from that genre. But this kind of redeemed it for me. This was very good, very different. I enjoyed the characters. It's kind of dystopian with a video game twist. It's kind of hard to explain. If you love gaming and if you want dystopia to be redeemed for you, I definitely recommend Ready Player One. Number 9 on my list is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This made many people's top 1, and I feel like this would be on my top 5 list once again, if it weren't for a bunch of other books I read. And to be honest, I'm still unsure if this is my favorite or if Heir of Fire is my favorite. Anyway, I'm rambling. This is the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series, and it was wonderful. It was a stunning addition to the series. I loved everything that went on in this. I love Selena. I love the character development. I love where this plot is going so much. This is one of my favorite series of all time. However, there is 1 or 2 elements that I felt like weren't handled the best, at least in my opinion. So that's why it's slightly lower, but once again, this is still my favorite series. I love Sarah J. Maas. Her books just get better and better and better as each of her series progress. So yes, Queen of Shadows, how could this not make the list anywhere? Number 8 on my list is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I was kind of hesitant to put this above Queen of Shadows, mainly to the fact that this is a debut and Queen of Shadows is a continuation. But I kind of put this above it because it was a debut and because it was a first novel. For a first novel, this is amazing. This is like a masterpiece. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, so I guess masterpiece might be a little bit too much, but for a first novel, guys, a first novel. But this blew me away. I know it was kind of overhyped for some people, and I can see why some people don't like it or it didn't do it for them. But for me, I love these characters, I love this world, I love that there's going to be more books coming. So yes, An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Also, this cover is beautiful. Number 7 on my list is the one and the only Winter by Marissa Meyer. This was the December Booksplosion Book of the Month, but I read Cinder before it was cool because I'm a hipster, I guess. But yes, this is the last book in the Lunar Chronicles, and let me tell you, I love the Lunar Chronicles so much. I love the worlds, the moon and the earth, everything that Marissa Meyer has created, and I feel like this wrapped up very well, and it is very difficult to wrap up series nowadays. There's a lot of failures and disappointments, but I feel like this did not disappoint. This was a top-notch conclusion to an amazing series. So yes, Winter by Marissa Meyer. Definitely check out the Lunar Chronicles. They're all right here. The first book is Cinder. Go check them out. Number 6 on my list is definitely a really favorite book of mine. Like, it's on my top 10 favorites like ever now, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir. I really love science. Like, I am a literary person, I love writing and reading, but when I was little, at one point I wanted to be a scientist. I want to sit in a lab and look at the stars and maybe be an astronaut. And then math came along and ruined all of those dreams because I could not do math, so therefore I could not do science, therefore I'm going to write a book and do other things. Okay, that was a little in-depth, but I love science and I love astronomy, and just reading this book and Mars and space and NASA just made me like, yes, I've been wanting something like this. That said, if you are not a science person, I still feel like you would love this book because just it's so funny and it's just an interesting read, and I just love it so much. I got really gushy there. That was really fangirly. That wasn't very, well thought out, but I can fangirl over The Martian. I'm allowed to. This is my YouTube channel. Okay, we're entering the top 5 books I read in 2015, and they are some good ones. So here we go. Number 5 on my list is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is another book where if you're into high fantasy, you have seen this everywhere. Some of you might even own this book and haven't read it yet. I owned this for a little bit and hadn't read it until now, and oh my gosh, guys, The Name of the Wind. I was expecting this book to be like a normal quest, like here's this hero, we're gonna send him off on an adventure and it's just gonna be awesome. It was like that, but not exactly. We meet this character when he is young, and then we see the progression of his life, like the different trials he goes through and how he becomes almost this hero in the end that will go on these epic quests. That said, there are still epic quests when he is young and in his teenage years, and it's just beautiful. It's almost kind of like an epic slice of life, and you get to see how he lives, and it's just wonderful, guys. It's wonderful. Number 4 on my list, I'm kind of cheating with this one. It is Vicious and A Darker Shade of Magic by Victoria Schwab. I read both of these books within the same month, and I just love them both so much, so I'm kind of grouping them together even though they're 2 different series. This is actually a standalone. I think there's possibility for a sequel, but it's been a standalone for a while. This is kind of a really dark book. It kind of has, what do you call it? Magical realism, and there's these 2 kind of superhero, kind of villain thing. Basically, you don't know who the hero is, and you don't know who the villain is, and you don't know who to root for, and it's kind of a backwards, interesting story, and I would definitely recommend this if you love Victoria Schwab. And A Darker Shade of Magic, this beautiful cover, this is about parallel Londons and this guy who can travel between these parallel Londons, and there's also pirates and this awesome female character and just so much going on. So yes, Victoria Schwab, she might be my second favorite author now, which is amazing. Alright, number 3 on my list is the Mistborn Trilogy plus the sequel books. I read Mistborn in January of 2015. I had watched some videos by Cass J. Tuck, who is an amazing booktuber by the way, and it also was the Booksplosion Book of the Month, so I had to read this. And when I finished this book, I realized that Brandon Sanderson is my new favorite author. And given the whole lineup of authors I've read in my reading life, to read one book by this guy and to have him become my favorite author ever is an amazing feat. These books, if you want to get into fantasy, read Brandon Sanderson. It's not 10 pages describing trees and landscapes and explaining magic systems like in 3 chapters and you're so bored and you don't understand magic or what this world is or why. He manages to put you inside his book and you get to experience how magic works through the characters and you get to see this world develop through the characters, and it's just phenomenal. Brandon Sanderson is the most talented writer I've read in a long time. You do have to give this book some patience, as with any fantasy novel, but I feel like it is impossible not to be immersed in this world and not to just love his writing when you read this. That said, I also love his sequel series. It's kind of more steampunky as opposed to the fantasy-ish of the Mistborn trilogy. If you've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, I would say Mistborn is the original Avatar. It is amazing and it is the best. And the sequel series to Mistborn is kind of like Legend of Korra. It's still really good, but it's never as good as the original, but you still want to see this world continue and unfold, and I am so ready for the next book to come out in this. It comes out in January. So yes, Mistborn. Brandon Sanderson came in January 2015 like a wrecking ball. I read this book, he became my favorite author ever, and he has held that title all throughout the year with all of these books I've read. Read Mistborn, guys. Read Mistborn. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is my number 2 on my top 15 list. I didn't physically read To Kill a Mockingbird. This is the audiobook. For those of you who don't know, I was in a car for 20 hours driving from Iowa to North Carolina because I moved there and then I moved back because my life is a mess. But anyway, on this 20+ hour trip, I wanted to buy an audiobook and I saw this in Barnes & Noble and I thought, you know what? I've never read this book in school and I never had to watch the movie, so I am going to buy this audiobook and I'm going to listen to it and see how it goes. This is my favorite classic ever. I have never fallen in love with a classic this hard, and I have never had a fictional character become one of my favorites so fast. Atticus Finch, guys. Atticus Finch is phenomenal. This is a wonderful classic. If you have not read this, if you hate it because you had to read it in school, I would say give it a shot or read the audiobook. It might take a little bit of time to get into it, but it is worth the read, guys. This is just, you read so many classics and it's about racism and it's the same story over and over again, and it's good to read, it's important to read them, but I feel like this tackled the subject of racism and social class very differently. It was through the eyes of a child and it wasn't always about the racial issue. Sometimes you just went with this child and you learned about her school and her life and her siblings and her feelings, but then you also get to witness through her eyes this subject of racism and how her father deals with it and how her father teaches her, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful story, guys. This is my number 2 favorite book of 2015. It was phenomenal. And my number 1 book series of 2015 is Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson and Words of Radiance. This is my favorite book series ever of all time. I love this book and this series so much I can't even contain myself. For Brandon Sanderson, for me to read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson and for him to become my favorite author and for that to become my favorite series was amazing, but the fact that I read 2 more books by him and that became even more favorite than Mistborn is just mind-blowing. I know I might sound like I'm hyping this author up, but I don't care. I am hyping this author up. Brandon Sanderson. This world is vast. This is a 1,000-page fantasy novel, and this is like a 1,100-page fantasy novel, and it is the fastest 2,000 pages I have ever read in my entire life. Very fast-paced. This is not slow and boring describing trees. You are in this world. You are immersed. You are learning. You love these characters. Every single character is a person. They're not just a device. Everyone has a backstory and a history, and when they balance off each other, you just understand it. And while it might take a while to read, it will feel very quickly. I feel like this is 3 really easy to read novels packed into one binding. It is just phenomenal. The world is vast and these characters are deep. the magic, there's not even that much magic. It's very much political intrigue and social issues, and it's just so wonderful. I hate politics. I despise politics, but trying to understand, like, I just hit something over. Trying to understand, like, the world and how things balance in here, it is amazing. I think this is even more vast than Tolkien. I feel kind of afraid to say that, but this is very huge. This is a huge book, not just thick-wise, but like the story and how big the world is, and the fact that everything's so big and intricate and properly built. This is a very well-built world. The fact that I can read this and understand it and enjoy it, and that it will kind of go by quickly, is wonderful. Brandon Sanderson, you are a talented author, and you have yourself a very fanatic fan right here, and I'm excited to be reading more of your books, and thank you so much for writing these books, because I'm obsessed now. I'm just obsessed. So yes, those are my top 15 books of 2015. I have read some amazing authors this year. There have been some amazing books released. I hope you guys had a good reading year too. I hope you found some new favorites, whether it be a book or an author or a series. Comment below and tell me your top 5, 10, or 15 books you read this year, or you can do a video response if you want to go old school. But yes, that is all I've got to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys had a phenomenal 2015 no matter what happened, and I hope that you are able to tackle the new year 2016 with ease. So yes, that is all I've got to say. My name is Josie, and thank you for watching.